Aleximo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to round 5 of the Crush Card Cup. I'm Aleximo, joined by Mr. Joseph Rothschild, Mr. MBT Yu-Gi-Oh! Himself, for another electrifying commentary. Big shoutouts to our sponsors for this 512-person free tournament, Ultimate Guard, Project CCG, and We Play Games. Be sure to check out their links down in the description for any of your card or accessory needs. But for this feature match, we kind of wanted to stay away from, the Adamantipator and Eldritch Onslaught we've been seeing, and we're bringing to you Water, one of the most underestimated decks of this current format, going up against Endymion. So 2 fan favorites here. Joseph, what do you think about this matchup?
All right, so we actually did see the rock, paper, scissors already, so congratulations. Paper wins again. That's going to be the end of the match. Water is an extremely flexible deck that I think isn't really being respected, mostly because people are being trepidatious until the new Deep Sea Searcher comes out in Eternity Code. People forget that Water, especially with Bahamut Shark, now good because of Master Rule 5, has the ability to, going first, loop between 4 and 6 cards out of the hand, and going second, set up really powerful OTK boards backed by negation. So obviously that's going to be difficult to do through Endymion specifically, which can set up very many negates of its own, but I have high hopes for Water. I'm excited to see if it's able to prove how flexible it can be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely underestimated going into this format, just knowing that it has such powerful capabilities of hand looping. It's always been able to hand loop, but now just with the fact that, it's Master Rule 5, there's so many more conditions now that make the deck so much more potent than before. It's
right.
More than just that going second deck that a lot of people were using in the past several formats, since basically it was like one of the best decks in the game, I should say.
God.
Or I guess pre-Master Rule 4 at the very least.
I think previously, the last time Water was relevant in any sort of competitive capacity was like Inov format, where Toad had just come out and anyone who could play Bahamut Shark was suddenly a top candidate. Since then, it's sort of been relegated to the edges of the metagame, rogue playable at basically all times, but never necessarily good. But the ability to Molenglacia, to Trishula, to Desert Locusts, the new addition to the deck, and to make Omega on your opponent's turn, for a lot of decks, that's too much to deal with.
So we see that Esteban is on the Spellbook engine here, playing a blue boy with secrets to go ahead and grab a copy of Knowledge, I imagine, just for some free draws, but also to help fuel his spell counter count. He's already gone ahead and fired off a Servant. He's got Jackal King for protection from any of Celza's hand traps, although he's on Water, so I don't know if he's really going to be playing much. You're just wanting to play as many Water combo pieces as possible. Maybe some Nibiru's just, to kind of counteract that Emancipator, who knows. But at the very least, Esteban does have that protection, and we're going to probably see a pretty formidable board here at the very least. Do keep in mind, I also forgot to mention, both of these players are 4-0 going into this, so I think that's pretty incredible in a field that is just littered with Eldritch and Adamantipator everywhere.
Yeah, certainly better than I am. I think we're about to see an IP Masquerena. For what it's worth, the Spellbook engine is so powerful in this deck specifically because Crowley is such an amazing boost for the deck, as well as the new Link monster Selene, which enables really powerful spellcaster summons on your opponent's turn. I have really enjoyed watching the evolution of this deck for the last couple of months. Dipping into the pool of mythical beasts, you see a Basilisk on the Pendulum player side of the field, until it is playing an unbelievable amount of cards that I would never expect to find in a deck that just aims to pump out negates.
Yeah, and Pendulum, as you kind of alluded to, has had this very interesting evolution. Like, it's always managed to come back, right? Whether it was in Magician form or once we finally got the Endymion pieces, which seems to be where the deck has finally, met its place, especially in this format specifically. But interestingly enough, it hasn't really been putting out the results that some people might expect. I know a lot of people like Pendulum. The deck is really cool. It does a lot of really neat things, but it really just hasn't been performing in the way that some people might expect it to be. And so that's why a lot of people don't really give it a lot of credit, at least at this current moment, even though they know how explosive the deck can actually be, especially when it's piloted in the correct hands.
Right, of course. The problem with any combo deck right now is you are competing for the same meta space as Adamantipator. And if the question is, are you a combo deck that's more resilient, more robust, and able to pump out more negates than Adamantipator? The answer is almost always no. With Pendulum, the unique benefit it has is a rebuild ability that most combo decks can't compete with, but Adamantipator doesn't struggle with the ability to get their board back via Block Dragon. So I think that's likely why you're not seeing the results that Pendulum is expected to perform, though that was a a pretty shocking win for for Pend.
I'm not really surprised there. Now, to be fair, when you looked at that board that Esteban assembled, right, he had the Masquerena, he had the Jackal King, he had Magister. Like, there was cards. Oh, that's Deep Sea Diva. That's a good start for Celza. But it was a formidable board, right? But the thing is, going into game one when it's combo versus combo, sometimes the die roll does play a role, and no pun intended. But if there's going to be an instance where, like, both players aren't playing any sort of disruption to stop their opponent, it's probably going to be in the combo mirror, and just having a semi-competent board of at least 1 to 2 disruptions could be enough to just slow them down. But now it's Celza's turn. We do have side decks in play here, but we're going to see Deep Sea Diva newly at 3, going to bring out our good old boy here, the Neptibus, and now we're maybe going to see some hand looping to see why this deck is currently 4-0.
Oh, die roll. Oh, I just got it. No, Deep Sea Diva is an incredibly powerful card. It was at 1 forever for a reason, and honestly, I am very scared that they put it at 3. It's extremely powerful. It's only gotten better in recent years as it's a tuner and can therefore turn on how Fibrax plays, which I think we're about to see.
Yeah, also, as I just showed in the graveyard, Dragoons is also a 3.
Oh, great.
We're going for Abyss Lacia, actually.
Oh, man. Abyss Lacia is so strong. Importantly here, we're just getting the 5 waters in graveyard so we can fire off a Molin. And boy, does Pendulum want to have 5 cards in its hand. Very difficult to assemble boards without it.
I was about to say, against Pendulum specifically, Moulin Glacier is particularly devastating because Pendulum needs a full grip of cards to be able to combo off, and so not being able to have those cards means you're going to have less access to your Pendulum scales, less access to combo pieces, and here we go. We're seeing Moulin Glacier ripping out a Magister and a Pot of Desires. Those are 2 incredibly powerful rips, and now we have Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi for a mandatory spell negation effect. This is a... I just love this card. I think this is so cool.
I really don't. So for what it's worth, seeing 2 set cards on the combo player's board makes me feel like at least one of them is going to be something like an Imperial Order. But, waiting for Dark Ruler no more. Unfortunately, that's just going to fiend out the Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi. The Mermail Abyss Lacia represents an individual pop because we know they have added a Marksman to hand. I think that's probably the end goal of the board. For what it's worth, this is a low power hand from Mermail. It could have gone much farther, especially with Deep Sea Diva into double goons and opener open. It really just seems like they're prioritizing cards that are specifically good against Pendulum, and I can't blame them.
The thing is, it could be good enough, right? Because just with the minor hand devastation, with Abyss Lacia able to use that heavy infantry, pop a card, you can use that to pop a Pendulum Scale to prevent them from Pendulum summoning, which might just be your win condition in and of itself, and you've got a significant amount of damage on board here. This is almost lethal, so any monster effectively gives you game, and depending on what those 2 back rows are, remember, we are in game 2, any of those cards could just be, at any point, just something that could just completely blow out the Pendulum player, because it's not very often you see trap cards in a, Mermail deck.
For sure.
So I'd be very curious to see what those cards are, but we're gonna potentially see.
Oh, there it is.
That's a good one. So different dimension ground going to. Oh, we're gonna chain link to Abyss Lacia, so that we're gonna pitch the heavy infantry.
Yikes.
We're going to get the Abyss Spike, and then that's going to trigger heavy infantry, so we can pop the the reflection of Endymion. That gets banished because of the different dimension ground, and we see Esteban just passed on this lone copy of Spellbook Magician.
Yeah, well, given that information, different dimension ground in the back row, this was definitely the correct setup,
Right.
Spellbook of Knowledge completely useless if you can't send cards to the graveyard, and Pendulum monsters don't like to be destroyed when there's a macro effect on field. I think this is lethal.
I think so. If not, it's like just shy.
If not, we could just activate the effect of Abyss Megalo. Oh no, is it actually 100 short? Oh no, Glacia and Megalo gained 500 because of
Abyss Lacia, yeah. So no, that is lethal. Yep. So there we go. Going into game 3. I mean, that was pretty. You say like you could have really asked for more if you were Water. Yeah, of course you'd want a hand loop, but I mean, You pretty much really easily took up that game, and that was due in part to Lacia just really abling that pop in tandem with the different dimension ground, of course, just kind of being able to just be the nail in the coffin there. But now we can see Esteban go first, and this is where things can get scary, especially when you're firing off Pot of Desires, because the more cards this deck gets, the more scary its boards can become.
Obviously, you want to see Pot of Desires after you found something like a Servant. You know, you don't want to banish it, and you want to get more free access spells while that card's on the field, but still pretty happy just to have more cards in the grip. If I am the Mermail player here, I'm not as concerned as I would be against other decks. You know, post-board, he's probably on cards that, while powerful, like Secret Village of the Spellcasters, potentially brick him out of really strong negation summons. And this deck can play much more easily through spell negation than monster negation.
Ooh, okay, so now we're seeing a Reflection trigger. It's going to summon another copy of Reflection with Village up and set one pass.
Are those summoned at the same time? Yeah, that is not a very good board. He's just going all in on this copy of Secret Village against a deck that can just normal summon a Neptibus.
Right, and the thing is, this deck doesn't particularly play a high density of spell cards. Like, they might play like 7 to 10 at most.
I mean, you play more post-Eternity Code because you want the Deep Sea Searchers, but outside of maybe Moray of Greed, you're on like 1-for-1, period.
Right, and so here we go, Deep Sea Diva. I mean, that's what you want to see. You're feeling pretty good if you're Celza here. We're going to grab that Neptibus, dump Dragoons, add another copy of Dragoons. I think this... Can we just talk about how absurd of a card Neptibus is?
It sends for cost. I mean, people whine about Kaleido Chick. This was the original Kaleido Chick. Some of you Yu-Gi-Oh! Players don't know.
This is even more absurd, though, because it effectively is a +2, because then you get the other Dragoons as well, and just, like, the amount of plays this card enables, because Dragoons is at multiple copies. Here comes the Megalo, pitching a Dragoons and a Heavy Infantry, so that's going to be a Search and a Pop from Celza coming down here. It's going to stack the chain, Goons chain like 1, Infantry chain like 2, Megalo chain like 3 to protect everything.
This is the most annoying part. You can chain block!
I know, so Megalo's most likely going to grab Mizuchi here. I would imagine. I don't think we're still playing Abyss Sphere. This is not 2015 anymore.
Thank goodness for that. Abyss Sphere, a terrible hell card.
Right. Mizuchi also gives attack, so, I mean, if you're trying to OTK, that seems pretty good. We're going to use the effect of Prince here to bring back this copy of Dragoons, and now we might see some Needle Fiber plays.
No, we're just going to go to Abyss Lacia. Shocking.
I think that's terrifying, that Needle Fiber is an option in this deck, and Abyss Lacia is still, like, your optimal choice, right?
You know, it depends, of course, on the setups, but right now all he's trying to do is lock his opponent out of spells, potentially, out of monsters, prevent his opponent from using scales at all, and all he's going to have to contend with here is one copy of Magister and an Unknown in hand, which I'm pretty sure is either a scale that doesn't matter, or a scale that isn't necessarily going to want to be in the Pendulum Zone. So we're getting in for 16 here, and, I mean, Servant Magister is a pretty good combo setup, but is it going to be able to beat through, like, pretty specifically Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi? I don't know.
Not when Moulin Glacia hits the board. Oh my god.
Lord. So he's got to keep the one that is, okay, Knowledge to the Graveyard's good. Oh, so we've kept Servant.
Okay.
He's got to find a spell for free activation.
There's no way he can win this, right? This has to be over.
It'd have to be like the set card is another Desires.
I guess? Like, that set card would have to be incredible for him to come back from this.
Oh, okay, so
man.
Now we're going to Lacia. Now,
Okay.
Lacia doesn't trigger the effect of Marksman here or Heavy Infantry, so it's not nearly as powerful, but still does get to add, which is extremely strong.
Yeah, it's just good setup for next turn, Pike being one of the deck's, other key play starters if you don't have a Diva or anything like that. But just setting and passing, oh no, Esteban, not like this.
Oh, and this is why I don't like cards like Secret Village of the Spellcaster. Yes, they're good against certain archetypes when you're playing Pendulum, but if you're unable to put up a board that includes a ton of negates, who cares what's in your field spell zone?
Yeah, this is going to be rough. I mean, this pretty much represents lethal damage if this goes through, so we're going to use that Megalo to attack over this Servant. We're going to go for 28, 16, and 60. Actually, it's even more than that because of Lacia's boosting it even further. So I think that's game. We're seeing the life points drain away, and it is game.
Lethal.
So Celza moving on in the Crush Card Cup to round 6 with a 5-0 record. I don't know about you guys, but the further Celza goes, I think people are going to be rooting for this underdog to take down the Adamantipator Eldritch meta right now. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video, and we'll see you in the next match.